I think this idea that we should be allowed to not see any police, we should just be able to be in this like zone where there's like no officers around is also not an ideal expectation, especially when it's a protest of this size.
I'm not saying no police, no protection. I'm not saying that, but there's a limit. It's like,
why is there a limit?
Okay,
what's the limit? Why is there a limit?
Don't overdo it. You know what I mean? Unless you see things happening that are out of line, that are crazy. Unless you see like people starting to do things that they're not supposed to do. But I feel like it's just like I feel like it's just like automatically an intimidation factor there without even needing it to be like from the jump.
My name's Adib, 41, and I am a software engineer.
My name is Tanajsia Slaughter. I am 34 years old and I'm an actress and artist.
My name is Gladys Egyir. I'm 28 years of age. I am an auditor, so I'm a certified information system auditor. I'm also a public speaker. I'm a certified mentor, an entrepreneur, and a licensed financial professional.
Hi, my name is Lucky Moore. I'm 51. I am the founder and CEO of Empathy Cafe.
My views on the current state of our civil liberties is that we've made some progress, but there's still a lot more that needs to be made in certain people groups and in certain parts of the country.
We are experiencing an unprecedented amount of unrest and dissatisfaction with our government, but I don't personally, at least in my day-to-day life, experience kind of like a lack of freedom of speech or whatnot. But I know that there are other people out there that are experiencing difficulties, and so I empathize with them, and I completely understand why some of these protests are happening and why people can be upset.
We find ourselves in a situation or in a country or in a world where we need to sacrifice our privacy for protection, in the name of protection. But I also come to understand the fact that we cannot have it all because we have limited resources, and so we need to sacrifice something to get something.
My view on our current state of civil liberties is they are being manipulated by the powers that be in order for them to retain and to control again. Civil liberties were designed and written and created to keep a certain set of people in charge. And when different people began to understand what civil liberties were, then those people who designed them or were the descendants of those designs are now trying to restructure them so that they can still benefit and detract from other people.
I'm on the fence, in between. In between.
You're in between?
Yeah.
I'm on the other side. I think there's a couple more things we could be doing.
I feel like we're sacrificing certain things in certain areas, but other areas, like, we have our strengths as far as Americans go. But I don't know, my life's been kind of unique in a sense because I've lived on like reservations and things like that. So I've seen that from like the true start of America to living in the inner city and being in bigger cities. And I think certain parts of the country are protected more than others. So that's where I see like there's flaws in the way that we do things as far as the government goes and who's protected and who's not protected, even down to the fact like when people go missing and things, certain groups of people are more protected than others. And I think we could do a lot better of a job with that. And just some people are more educated than others about our civil liberties and things like that. I think when it comes to that kind of thing, I think we can do better,
Do you think any of you personally have given up anything for security that's like a little beyond?
I believe we've also given up our privacies in terms of security because after the 9/11, when we have the Patriotic Act, now we use face recognition. Development with technology has taken over, where even at the airport, you have to scan your fingerprint. A lot of things that I believe it's kind of individual, it's kind of privacy, but because of also they want to ensure that each and everyone is safe and protected. Now even our phone conversation are being tracked in the name of protection, in the name of security wise. And aside that, still we have not been safe, because each day, each time people are calling us with different kinds of numbers, scammers everywhere.
Yeah.
We are giving up our privacy of whereby people can track our records, our conversations, and yet things are not being done to ensure that maximum security where we can feel protected and secured in our communities, in our houses. In some way, just as she said, I support her in the sense that some aspect, in every situation, we give up some things just to achieve something. Resources are limited, and so we cannot actually achieve all things or sacrifice all our needs. So some of our privacy have been given up in order to ensure that we have been protected in the country or in the state where we find ourselves. Yeah.
See, for me, like the inconvenience of showing my driver's license and maybe x-raying my bags is totally worth it if at least one life is saved or one, problem is prevented. Because, it's an inconvenience, but, ultimately it's a light enough inconvenience for what could happen, right? Things could be worse, and in my opinion, this is like saving a life. What's more precious and important than that? And so, there's some trade-offs in terms of being identified. But, a lot of us, luckily, the majority of us don't have anything to hide in terms of who we are. Like, if anything, self-identifying. In fact, people love self-identifying, grouping themselves. They're on social media posting pictures of themselves all day long, right? Like, people kind of don't mind doing that, but there are some people who try to hide their identity. And there are valid reasons to do that, for sure. But, there are also probably more dangerous reasons why some people do it, So, I think there's a balance for sure. But for me, some of that inconvenience is worth it.
I still have a hard time truly identifying what civil liberties are. And that is because I'm Black. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan during a time period when the Reagan administration was in, and you would start to see the depletion of the neighborhood. And they consolidated that depletion in that area. And they kept you there while other people were able to get different grants to open up or to take over businesses that were ran in there. And that money didn't generate within that community anymore. It went to Dearborn or to other suburban areas. And so when you went to me going to those places, I'm supposed to be able to be free, right? Go where I want, do what I want. But even going to the malls there, I was monitored. I was monitored more there than I was in the city that I was born and raised in. And then even moving here, I was so amazed to see so many different races and, different types of people. And, they were all walking in Hollywood and the Los Angeles area and everything. And it was interesting to see the wonderment in some of the tourist eyes because even though that we have, like civil liberties, some of those people have a more constrained way of living. So I'm trying to understand what civil liberties are, because there are certain people here who get them, period. Full stop. They have them. And they are freely able to express to you in the manner of which they feel that they want to tell you that they have them.
That's a good point.
Well,
I mean, when it comes down to it, take the law, for example. A black person gets pulled over and then a white person gets pulled over. What's the difference of that situation going to be? How are you going to be treated in terms of who's going to be treated one way and who's going to be treated another way based off of the color of your skin, And that's the sad reality that we live in. I mean, I think all of us can say, like, that's a possibility, that we may be treated differently than somebody who is white, And it's just like, that's when it's like, do your civil liberties come into question in certain situations based off the color of your skin,
And don't let gender play a role in that. Because even if you do know your civil liberties and you express that to an authority figure, and you are a black woman, they will still snatch you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so a very important civil liberty here is freedom of speech, right? And the problem right now is people either have to be quiet or closet how they feel, or basically have like underground communities where they discuss how they feel, because there isn't any tolerance anymore for differing opinions and debate. What I'm hinting at also is like, when people do express how they feel, there's a chance that you might have information or data or something that maybe that I don't know. And by allowing open and free conversation, there might be an opportunity for me to actually learn from you by you bringing up some things. But like, if I hypothetically am like, for or against some issue of the week, the fact that most people will, want to cancel you, remove you from social media, basically like completely isolate you into now a separate bubble. I'm never going to get exposed anymore to like other people, at least within my community. So I just think that right now it's so weird, because what should have been a society that's able to discuss, debate, find middle ground is now completely segregating, isolating. People's friend circles are essentially an ideological bubble, and I just feel like that's what's making the country get worse and worse and worse, at least every year that I've seen it.
Freedom of speech does not free you of freedom of repercussions. Just as you have the freedom to say whatever it is you want to say, that you may have to handle the repercussions of that freedom. And that's that person's freedom. So if someone don't want to rock with you because you said some outlandish stuff, that's their freedom. And we tend to, as a people, isolate within our own particular groups because of the safety in it. Sometimes being uncomfortable, you have to get out of that. I can agree. But like, freedom of speech does not mean that the other person who heard your speech has to just okay, suck that up and take that, you know. I mean, the world ain't Twitter, you know. That's just how I feel.
Okay, so I just also wanted the fact that we have freedom to speech doesn't mean that we don't have limitation to that. Your freedom ends once mine start, and yours start once my end. And so you also have to be cautious of what you are speaking, what you are saying. Is it going to affect somebody's maybe integrity, dignity? I believe if something happened to you and you wouldn't be happy about it, I don't think, and I don't expect you to also do it to another person. And so there's this statement that in the Bible it says, do unto others what you want others to do unto you. The fact that you have a freedom of speech doesn't mean you can just stand up and say whatever you want to say in the name of you have the freedom of speech. And so just as he said, you have to also accept the precautions that comes with it. In every actions, there are consequences. And so are you willing, are you ready to accept the consequences that comes with your freedom of speech? And so everybody has the right, just as you said, you have the right to speak. I also have the right to speak. And so when you say something and I'm not in support of it, the same way I have that right to also counter what you are saying. And however I want to handle that, it's also my right, because you make up your mind to say whatever you think deem necessary to say it. And so I also have to come and say what I also deem necessary or good for me to also say it, because I wouldn't want to sit down for my integrity, for my dignity to be at stake in the name of what? Freedom of speech, for you to say whatever you think you have to say to me. So it's not kind of limiting people to express themselves. It's not kind of putting fear in the people, but just also making people caution of what they say and what not to say in everything that are wrongs and right. And so we have to know what is right and what is wrong.
If I punch you in the face every time you say something, you know, is that really a freedom of speech? I mean, yeah, I know like people say, oh no, you know, you're not free from consequences, but in an orderly society, there needs to be a way to discuss complex set of opinions and views. And right now, the intolerant people, they do themselves a disservice, because what happens is people get quiet and they move in silence. And people lose elections and they don't know how it happened. People to this day in California are confused. What happened to the elections? What's happened? Like, they don't understand that like there are people out there who don't necessarily maybe share certain points of views, but they also don't have the same information, background, or knowledge, and vice versa. And in an intellectual society, in an ideal world, there would be an opportunity for dialogue, discourse, and sharing of information. And right now, the intolerant people are really starting to lose control, and they're having to lash out in other ways because they haven't created a space in which people can debate in a healthy way. I think as much as people say, oh, you don't have the freedom of consequences, the consequences on you. And you're the one that's going to lose over time, because the moving in the silence and in the shadows, the silent majority will win. And the way that this game operates is, you know, you need discourse, especially in a democratic society. You will lose. I mean, that's just the game. It's like people, the silent majority is still the majority, and they will operate in ways that will make you further disillusioned with the system, and you know you're gonna it's gonna get worse and worse. I think the dialogue is critical. I mean, we're a very civilized society. Most people are, you know, thankfully, you know, able to read and educated enough that like the information can be discussed in a way where people can find middle ground and compromise. This idea that like, you know, I'm going to lose all control of my emotions just because you have a slightly different opinion, I think is destroying our society.
I'm a firm believer in speaking your mind. I feel like if something's important to you, you should say it. And it doesn't matter who gets upset about it. I feel like if it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And at the end of the day,
people are always going to have an opinion, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter who you are. And I feel like if you feel strongly enough, do it. Especially like being an actor, actress, or whatever, you know. My manager is like, be careful about what you say when it comes to politics and religion and things like that. But I don't. I speak my mind, you know. And I've seen like musicians and things like lose gigs and stuff over speaking about Gaza and Palestine and like speaking about their religion. But if it's on your heart and it's in your spirit, then you should do it, you know, because in life there's always going to be a consequence. And if it's a group of people being oppressed, then if it's not right, it's not right. You know what I mean? And it's like if our forefathers would have been quiet about what was going on, nothing would have gotten done. But they spoke up, they spoke out, and they made a change. And I feel like that's, you know.
One thing I'll touch on there is like, as a, you know, for my job, I'm in technology, and you know, when we build technology, I tell my team, I say, hey, I want to hear debate. What is wrong or what is right with this approach? I want all sides to argue and discuss, and we end up building some of the, you know, some of the best approaches to the stuff that, you know, that we need. Because the world isn't black and white, the world is gray, and that nuance is needed to really find the right approach. And I think, you know, to your point, it's important to be able to say, but if somebody says something that most engineers disagree with, and we say, you're an idiot, or you're whatever, we kick them out the meeting, we don't have them anymore. And like, you know, imagine in a workplace if somebody was doing that. It's like, it's a ridiculous way to run a business, right? Or grow any tech, you know?
There is authentic debate where, you know, two people or a group of people have different ideas or opinions and want to discuss to understand. But then there are just some people who just want to run their mouth because what they feel that they have to say is more important than what you have to say. And no matter what you say in response to what they're saying, they're not listening to you because they've already got their next line that they want to do, you know, to the contrary. So when you're in discussions with people or you get into, you know, the debates or you hear a person with a different size, you have to go into, you're like, this is not a conversation worth having because that person's not willing to understand me. I am putting my best forward to understand them, but I can see that they don't want to have a discussion or a debate. They just want to be heard. So you go be heard over there. I'm gonna rock over here.
The man we spoke with is a U.S. citizen. He provided us with documentation of his legal status. He says this experience has shaken his faith in the immigration enforcement efforts of President Donald Trump, for whom he voted, he says. This is what Yenzi Machado managed to record on his phone Wednesday. He says while he was driving to work with two other men, he was stopped by ICE agents on Lamont Drive in Manassas, a short distance from his home. He says he was confused by what was happening, why agents surrounded the pickup truck. He spoke with our sister station Telemundo 44 reporter Ojugbeli Quiñones, who was the first to report his story.
And they just got out of the car with the guns in the hands and say, turn off the car, give me the keys, open the window. And, you know, everything was really fast.
Machado says the agents said the name of a man they were seeking for a deportation order, someone who had given Machado's home address. He said that was not his name and he did not know anyone by that name. He offered to show them this, his real ID compliant Virginia driver's license. It has a star in the upper right corner and requires proof of lawful status.
They didn't ask me for any ID. I was telling the officer if I can give him the ID, but he said that just keep my hands up, not moving. And then after that, he told me to get out of the car, and then he put the handcuffs on me. And then he went to me and said, how did I get into this country? And if I was waiting for court or if I have any case. And I told him I was an American citizen. And he looked at his other partner like, you know, smiling, like saying, can you believe this guy? Because he asked the other guy, do you believe him?
Machado said he was uncuffed and immediately released after showing his driver's license. The two men with him were taken into custody. He does not know why. The incident has caused him to reflect.
Because, like I say, I was Trump supporter. I voted for Trump last elections, but because I thought it was going to be the things, like be pointless, like just go against criminals, not every illegal Hispanic looking like that. They will assume we are illegals,
So, do you think that's what they're doing now?
That's what they're doing now. They're just following Hispanic people looking like.
Immigration lawyers suggest that residents and citizens carry ID with them at all times. In Manassas, Jackie Benson, News 4.
Okay, I just in my general opinion of all like structures, whether it's private or public, Boeing had mistakes or bugs in their system that caused their planes to crash. Software developers create bugs in systems that, Facebook will be great, but certain buttons might not work here and there. All institutions have inherently, no institution is going to be flawless. I mean, let's just understand that. No matter what it is, whether it's a police department, a child protection services, they're going to miss some kids and kids are going to get abused. The lack of a flawless system is not something that means that the entire system needs to go away. But, it's not good. Like there are some mistakes that are, inexcusable. Boeing is a good example, not to just pick on them, but there are examples where mistakes can cost lives, mistakes can ruin lives, and we should expect from certain government institutions near flawless 99.99999% performance. And, I think police departments are a great example of this. I think immigration-related departments, certain departments just need to be on that level. And it's better to let a few, in my opinion, let a few criminals get away and to have a better system that is less likely to have false imprisonments and false, people put away than to have a system that is stretching in the other direction where you have innocent people being hurt, essentially. Just my opinion.
Can I ask a question? How many detained immigrants that you've seen in these past months were white? Are you telling me that there are no white illegal immigrants, undocumented people here? Why do they all look like that, gentlemen? Why do some of them now are even looking like us? Examples, you say mistakes happen. The NRA are very vocal about the First Amendment. That's a civil liberty, correct? Philando Castile was he was licensed to carry that firearm. The police unloaded on that man in 7 seconds. Did the NRA come to that family's defense? Or were they silent? Again, I just ask, I'm having a tough time knowing what a civil liberty is.
But I think we're agreeing here, right? I'm saying institutions like the police need to err on the side of actually risking bad people getting away to prevent good people getting hurt or arrested. What I'm saying actually is in line with what you're saying, which is like the mistake here is the people that they're hiring, the training that they're doing. There's a series of mistakes that lead to, let's say, a racist cop, right? Or a racist or prejudiced staff member on your team. The institution as a whole, right? The police as a whole is here to help and serve and protect. Now, there are members of those institutions that are, again, the issue is like there are members of every institution, no matter where you go, that are not the right people that should be involved in those departments or in that system, right? So I think we're saying the same thing, which is like there's very little tolerance for certain institutions to have these kinds of mistakes. Like we don't want police to be making these kinds of mistakes. We don't want ICE to be making those kinds of mistakes. And so to me, at least in the video that we saw, I think that there's a fundamental problem in the type of people and the training that's been provided, at least in that instance. I'm not saying all members of it's like saying you wouldn't want people to say all black people are looting or all black people are doing X, Y, Z because, but exactly, we don't want that.
They're
right?
saying it.
Yeah, but again, it's like, you can't have these blanket, because most of these institutions do exist to serve us in some way. I mean, a lot of them.
I don't know. Okay, so the person who is in office right now, who is implementing these procedures, I'm gonna take it slightly in a different direction for a minute, but he was at one point talking about eliminating like birthright citizenship for people, okay? And the history of this country, from treaty rights with the natives who were here first, all the way up until now, there's been like discord between that, okay? And in my heart, I feel like this is just an excuse to get rid of a certain group of people, starting with one and progressing to another, because if you look back in time, kill the Indian, save the man. That was the presidents of those times, their agenda, but they used different lingo to say, okay, hey, we're gonna do this so that they can adopt our ways and become like this and become like that. So we have an easier, better, safer society, because to them, who was here were savages. They didn't follow any kind of laws and they didn't understand the way that they lived. And so that's what they did back then. And I just see history repeating itself. It's just a different time, slightly different group of people, even though Mexican people are indigenous, because this was Mexico. If you think about it, back in the day, this land was part of Mexico. And this is their ancestral home. And there were natives here too, and that's their ancestral home. We were taken from our homes, Africans and Caribbeans and all of us. We weren't originally here, but there are people who were, and those are the people being targeted right now. So if you look, it's history repeating itself. It's a person in charge who has a problem with a certain group of people, who wants them gone, who wants less of them because they're starting to outnumber everyone else. And it's a problem. And what better way to do it than create another agenda that makes it easier for people to swallow? And then also it turns people within the communities against each other, because all of a sudden people are starting to look at every Hispanic person like, are you illegal? Are you a criminal? There's children. I work at a school and there's children being taken from elementary schools. Why? A child is not going to be a criminal. A child is not trafficking or selling drugs. You know what I mean? And it's just like they're being stripped from their families. You know, there's Hispanic children at the school that I teach that didn't show up for the last 2 weeks of school. And all we could assume is that their family's hiding. Why? Because of racism. Because they want to take away the people that they feel are a problem, even though these people are contributing to their housekeeping, to taking care of their kids. Everybody loves to eat tacos and carne asada and all that until it's time to, see, oh, are you illegal? Are you legal? You know what I mean? It's like, there's so much that goes into that. But if you look at the history of this country was stolen. It's a stolen land. And it's the same people who are in power, It's just a different time. And so if you understand where we started, it's really just repeating itself. It's just now we have social media and all that to amplify the things that go on and make it seem like it's different when it's really not.
Yeah, so what we watched or what we are seeing, is it a mistake? Mm-hmm. Was that a mistake? Or did somebody just get caught?
First of all, I think there's a big issue with that video for sure. I think one is the way police, like if I had to replay that scenario, like somebody gave this man's address, they went to that address, and the right thing to do is like, hey, we're looking for this guy. We just need to verify if it's you or someone else. It could have been a very polite interaction, but these cops came off racist. I mean, I don't know if the video is going to be shown to everyone who's going to watch this, but like the whole situation is unacceptable. The whole situation is unacceptable.
It's a patrol.
Yeah,
That's what that is.
You know, so
And if you know what a patrol started from, that's what's going on right now.
it's a what? Sorry,
It's a patrol.
okay.
The whole system was first begun as a slave patrol. What is happening right now is a patrol.
Tensions are escalating in Los Angeles after protests against immigration and customs enforcement gripped the city. As protesters clashed with law enforcement officers, blocking roads, vandalizing, and setting cars on fire, President Donald Trump deployed National Guard troops despite California Governor Gavin Newsom's objections.
You have violent people, and we're not going to let them get away with it.
Here's what we know so far about how the chaos unraveled. June 6, Friday, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents were carrying out a series of immigration sweeps across Southern California. Reports of federal agents running after people in a parking lot of a Home Depot in Westlake started circulating. Around 3 p.m. local time, a crowd of dozens gathered in the Fashion District near downtown Los Angeles after ICE agents appeared at an apparel manufacturer there. Video shows what appears to be ICE agents loading at least 2 white, unmarked vehicles with people in handcuffs. Crowds gather around the vehicles. Some are seen even standing in front trying to stop the vehicle from going further. Later in the afternoon, hundreds of protesters gathered outside the Los Angeles Federal Building, calling for an end to immigration raids in the city. Footage shows protesters vandalizing the building and heckling law enforcement. Police with riot gear were seen confronting the protesters with batons and what appeared to be tear gas rifles.
That was so
100.
fast.
100%. 100%. I work and worship in downtown LA. I do all that in the South Park area, which is like a block away from the Staples Center. It's quiet in my area, but you go 2 blocks out, you go to the Home Depot, and there is ICE agents snatching people at the Home Depot on Western and Union. I thought we were going after drug dealers. I thought we were going after criminals. If this dude's over here at the Home Depot trying to do your garden, when does he have time to rob you? When does he have time to sell drugs? When does he have time to run a cartel business? If we're going after criminals, why are we snatching parents from graduations? Why are we entering churches, houses of worship? If we're going after criminals, why did I see helicopters circling a construction building and they're yanking out construction workers? Were these construction workers selling cocaine in there? Or were they hammering up drywall?
I believe that's the reason why people are angry on the street, causing chaos. But I mean, what is happening in LA is an eyesore though, but then I also believe 2 wrongs doesn't make right. And so if there's a way we can try to avoid some of this chaos, I believe it's gonna help a lot, because now people's business has been affected. People cannot even walk out freely, the fear of not going in to get into trouble, because I might be innocent, all right, but I don't know what I might face maybe on my way to get the grocery shop to grab some stuff or something else. And so, I don't know, but I believe if there's a way we can deal with all this chaos, this fear that has been put into people. People can't even go to work freely. People that can't even walk out, you'll be there receiving calls, just be indoors, don't go out. Meanwhile, you're not a criminal, but you are scared to go out. So there's a whole lot of things happening, but at the end of the day, I say two wrongs doesn't make right. I don't know, just trying to figure out how best we can deal with the situation.
I would add, I think there's two very clear, distinct things going on. I think there's the execution of the Trump's mandate of dealing with our border crisis, and then there's the way in which we, as a society, protest and deal with any issue that we have, right? There was BLM at one point. There's all these different topics, that have had protests. There's something going on with the protest world. Protest was supposed to be a tool for society to raise their concerns to the government and raise awareness for their issues. And something's been changing. I don't know, for me, I feel like it's been since COVID, it's gotten, there's like elements inside of all protests, including the ICE ones, that go around vandalizing, assaulting, destroying, looting. There's something going on. And I think there needs to be a discussion about that, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, on the other side, most people, I think, would happily agree with criminals, murderers, and dangerous people being deported. Most people. Like, I doubt there's anybody out there saying, no, we got to keep all the criminals here. There aren't that many people doing that. And that was a mandate that he got, because that was how he talked. And I think the execution of whatever it is they're doing, and I can't pretend I know enough about it, because unfortunately I don't have all the information there, but most of us can agree that like there's something also wrong with the execution of this mandate. So I think there are two topics, and I don't want to conflate them together by accident, because by me saying I'm not for people assaulting, looting, and destroying their city has nothing to do with my disagreement with the execution of how this is being done. Because I think some people, they loop them together and they turn it into like this like this argument where it makes it seem like if you're not happy about the protest, somehow you're for children getting deported. That's not the situation. I just want to be clear that there are two distinct arguments. But I don't care what your issue is. I do not support people going around and burning their cities down. I lived in Oakland during the BLM riots. At the end of the day, all the white people in the nice neighborhoods were still living in their nice homes, but Oakland was burnt to, graffiti everywhere. Buildings were just like boarded up and just like businesses were destroyed. The black people suffered from the BLM movement. I don't think the nice suburban communities were impacted at all by all that protesting. So I think at the end of the day, what's important, because again, Paramount is a Latin community that was getting destroyed. Compton is a Black and Latin community that's being destroyed. Like, at the end of the day, we can't destroy our own community, our own businesses, vandalize and assault our own people. And again, there's an element inside the crowd. I'm not saying that my friends protested. There's an element, there's something going on. Exactly. And it's been going on for a couple of years now that needs to be discussed and needs to be addressed. Because this is not an acceptable way to raise concerns about issues with our government. Yeah.
Just people taking advantage, doing things that is not actually accepted in the community, affecting people's life, businesses. So just as you said, there should be a way we can address this issue, identify those causes of it so that we address it. Nobody is stopping anybody for them to protest and express their concerns, but they shouldn't affect the life of people, and they shouldn't affect businesses in the name of you trying to bring out your concerns. And if there's the reason to that too, then we should also try to figure out what is causing those people to take advantage of this protest case, to destroying things, vandalizing things, and burning cars, businesses. I even heard in the news where stores were robbed and all those kind of things, and that is kind of disheartening. And to me, I'm not in support of that as well. Just don't agree with that.
No. And then we gonna go all back around what we were already. Like, why is it happening? I think we all know why it's happening. And part of it is just a whole distraction. Because like I said, I live, work, and I worship down in that area. And so like while the National Guard was over here, you know, wrangling, if you want to call it that, protesters, a woman came around and she had to lay off 10% of her workforce. She works in providing assistance to homeless people, whether it's housing, medications, those types of things. And she was upset that she had to lay off those people because the Trump administration cut that funding. So while that spectacle is happening over there, more lives are going to be deeply affected. And then there's going to be, why are all these homeless people out here in the street? Why are all these crazy people around? That's all I gotta say.
I'm a big reflector on history and then tie it into the present. And even back at like Standing Rock, the first thing they did was call in the armies and everything like that. And it started out very peaceful, but that itself stretched out for a long time. And Trump was involved in that, in the pipeline and everything. He wanted the mineral resources and all that. And so now he's back and he's got an agenda of his own that he's implementing. The first thing he does is let's call the forces in because we got to get rid of these people as fast as we can and as quickly as we can so we can move on to the next thing. I don't think it's necessary. What I do think, though, what we need as people or leaders again, like Martin Luther King Jr., who were like educated and like rooted in faith and things that organized these protests and did these things in like a better way. Because chaos creates more chaos and it makes us all look bad. But if we could just have leaders in every community of people I'm talking who are eloquent, who are educated, and who know how to like organize the people together in a better way without rioting, without burning our communities down because it's hurting us more than it's helping us. If we can get there, I think that we could combat these things better. But I think it's wrong for him to just immediately call in the military because these are regular people. What are we going to do against these armed? And they know that already. They already know that. They know that they can take us out quickly, you know, like that.
So you're still, I mean, they didn't ban the protest thing, right? You're still allowed to protest.
You're allowed to. Yes.
You're allowed to, right?
Yes.
So like, what's the issue with just having more security around? Like, what is it that everyone's like are they afraid to get killed? Or like, what is it that the extra security is going to do? That's like such a concern. I'm just curious.
As a teenager, I'll tell you, I used to protest for land rights because of my father's heritage. You know, I identify with the indigenous community. So I would be out there and everything would be fine. I'm telling you, like Washington, D.C., we had hand drums, we were round dancing, we were singing. That's it. Next thing you know, there's the police right there. And we weren't even doing anything. But automatically, it just makes you scared. It makes you like, yes. Oh God, I'm gonna go to jail today, yes. Or I might get shot or something like that. And we were just had signs, singing songs, asking for protection for the land. That's it. Mm-hmm. So I can imagine these people here right now, where they grew up, where they're from, and everything like that, started out just wanting to speak up for themselves. Automatically, the police show up and more people show up. It's gonna put you on the defense. Yeah. It's gonna be like, okay, maybe we need to step it up. Maybe we need to take this up a notch because they're doing it to us. So it creates like chaos when there doesn't need to be. There are probably people using this opportunity to do some messed up things. Yes. I'm not saying that's not happening.
Extra guards are protecting these federal buildings, right? The federal buildings are being vandalized, attacked, right? And federal employees are also being assaulted and attacked. And the extra security, right, is to protect both the employees as well as the buildings. And in some cases, most protests have like areas where they're going to allow it because people still need the freedom, the civil liberty of passage and movement through the city. And there are a lot of single mothers with 2-3 kids that need to get to their job because that income, if they don't make it that day, they can't feed their kids. There are families that need to see each other. There is still a living community that lives in these cities that need passage, safe passage. And there have been people who've had their cars attacked. There have been assaults, and so on. So having some extra security to ensure safe movement of people, to protect our community, our buildings, you're allowed to protest. There's nothing wrong with protesting. And I also think there's nothing wrong with having some extra security around. Like it's not like they're going around, mowing people down with machine guns. This isn't some foreign, country. They're protecting and stationed in ways where you're right. If you're a looter, you're going to see one and you're going to be nervous, and you're not going to loot. Hopefully, if you're going to assault, if you're planning on doing some vandalism, maybe you are going to be afraid. But that's the point. We want certain people to be afraid of committing violent or general crimes against society, and so I've been in many protests myself. I'll be honest, I lived in the Washington, D.C. area, and I protested many times. And there were always lots of guards and police, including the D.C. police, as well as, federal. So there are always police around. It's not, I think this idea that we should be allowed to not see any police, there should be no security. We should just be able to be in this zone where there's no officers around is also not an ideal expectation, especially when it's a protest of this size.
I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying no police, no protection. I'm not saying that, but there's a limit. It's
why is there a limit?
Okay,
what's the limit? Why is there a limit?
Don't overdo it. You know what I mean? Unless you see things happening that are out of line, that are crazy. Unless you see people starting to do things that they're not supposed to do. But I feel like it's just I feel like it's just automatically an intimidation factor there without even needing it to be from the jump, from the start, there was automatic intimidation factor. I'm going to bring my people in because I hear that there's protesting going on. Now, I haven't gone down there myself. I haven't been down there. So I'm going without seeing, firsthand what's going on. So if I'm wrong on some points, forgive me. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's automatically a precursor to let's get as many troops as we can down there to show the world, to show the country that we're handling this and we're nipping this in the bud super fast. You know what I mean? And it's just there's always going to be people doing messed up things, like you said, but I just feel like it's just overdone.
I mean, when you're not committing vandalism or crimes, it's not that intimidating to have a cop stationed on the street while you're. Trust me, I've been in many protests. Cops are everywhere. They're watching. They're on their horses too, and it's not. I mean, it's part of a normal thing, especially when it's planned protests. A lot of times there are planned events where the cities. I went to the inauguration for Obama. There were cops lined throughout the city. Is that intimidating? If it is, if you're going to commit a crime, if you're going to go to the inauguration and start attacking people, you better be intimidated because those cops are not going to play. But Yeah,
and even it is their responsibility to also ensure that the members involved are also protected and safe. And to the question whether these guards were needed or not, actually I wasn't even following until after this guy's case. So the question what the situation demanded for their presence. That is what we should actually consider. If there was the need for them to be there, then I believe there was. But if there was not the need, then they were not supposed to be there. They being there too, it is not a problem because they were also there to ensure that even if there's a protest, they are supposed to do it in the right way and not the wrong way. And that was why maybe they were there. But just as you said, as you being a protest being there, seeing their presence will scare you a little bit. And the scare is not to the extent of you doing the wrong thing, but rather being cautioned that these people are here, that if I mess up, I'm gonna get into trouble. So even if I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I have to do it in the right way so that I wouldn't be in the trouble. But just as I said, people think different way. People act in a different way. So in as much as you are thinking that, oh, they're here, we are not even doing anything harmful, why are they here? Maybe they're also there thinking that, oh, we want to come here so that these people will be safe in their cause of what, trying to voice out their concerns to the either authorities or the government or something. So actually, I don't know. I can't actually tell whether there was the need for them to be there or not, but if the situation demanded them to be there, then they are right. If not, then I think there was no need at all as well.
So some of the things that changed my perspective today was hearing Tanajsia's personal stories about being Native American and just her experiences around being intimidated by police. You know, I personally hadn't had that feeling, so it was interesting to kind of hear her perspective, because I've grown up in cities like Washington, D.C. that just has a lot of security, a lot of federal government employees, and so there are I guess experiences that are different, and it was good to hear her opinions.
Overall, the entirety of what I heard today challenged my perspective, because it's always nice to hear what other people think outside of what you think. You get caught up in your own little box and your own viewpoints, especially when it comes to like how we had different viewpoints about law enforcement and like what's required and what's not required. I think our life experiences were all different, and it helped kind of mold our viewpoints afterwards.
One thing that I've come to understand, I've been informed based on this conversation, this debate, hearing from other people's opinions and people's ideas. I have also taken things out of it. But one thing that I can say that we shouldn't hide under the law, or we shouldn't use feelings to overlook things that is right, to overlook and support things that are supposed to be done. I know people, especially with the current state of what is happening in some states, especially in LA, just look at it. Whether was necessary for God to be sent to LA or not, it's not a problem. The question is, the situation demanded for it. If it is, then I believe it is the right thing to do.
Speaking with the people on the panel, I came back more informed. So there were a couple of moments where Adib made my radar go up, not in a negative way, but just like registering, okay, like when he said like police are there to protect. We have to understand how police and law enforcement was formed. If we understand where things come from and where they originated from, we can better maneuver ourselves within this society. History is repeating itself, another panelist said. So I think if we know the origins of America, I think the better off we will be able to navigate and get through it.